What is up, everybody? I am Taylor. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel, or whatever. And this is the Cranky Comic Book Review Show for August 24th, 2022. Before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to the CBC Award. Oh, shut up, Siri. There we go. That's my one time my watch activates for the video, hopefully. But I want to give a shout out to cbcawards.org. I was nominated for a very prestigious award for Best Comic Book Review Channel. I appreciate it. And if you guys get a chance, go to that channel. I'm going to leave a link here and as well in the description down below. I would love it if you voted for me, but you don't have to. But just go vote for your favorite comic creator or whatever. A lot of different categories on there. A lot of friends of mine are up for awards. And yeah, just give it a check out. I'm not even sure when the award ceremony is. It's an honor to be nominated, so thank you for everyone that voted for me. And for those of you that have voted for me to progress further, I appreciate that as well. But yeah, just vote. Just go take a look, vote. Maybe you'll find a new creator. Maybe you'll find somebody new you enjoy watching. Just go check it out. All right, now on to our regularly scheduled programming. This is the Comic Book Review Show. It's cranky. It's where I go from the worst to the best. It's a thick boy week, and I've got a first for this channel, and I've got an incomplete one to start this off. This is maybe not the worst, but this is the I don't care enough to keep reading. Yeah, I'm done. This is Avengers X-Men Eternals Death to the Mutants #1, written by Kieran Gillen. I tried. And you know what happens? Like, you put these pre-orders in like a month before the book comes out. And so I was counting on the event to be good, and I kept putting in pre-orders for these titles because I was like, well, I'm counting on it to be okay. I'm counting on it to be entertaining. It's a fun enough idea. It's got Kieran Gillen on it. It's got Asad Ribic on the covers. Sure, I'll give it a whirl. And then you read the one, and you're like, oh, that's not great. But I'll read the second one. Oh, that's not great. But you have to pre-order so far in advance that you're kind of stuck with it. And I was stuck with this book. I probably wouldn't have bought it. And my LCS was fine. I could have not bought it. But I pre-ordered it, and I don't want to stick with that because it's not fair to them either. So I made it about 5 pages into this, and I just was like, you know what? Nah, I don't care. It's going on my unread comic pile. That's about 10,000 unread comics. I read a lot of them, obviously, but there are some I've picked up I've never read, and I don't give a rat's ass. It is boring as hell to me. Like, they've taken an interesting idea and just made it so tedious and dull to get through. It's a trudge fest, and I am not trudging with this anymore. I'm done. So, incomplete. I didn't finish it, but it's the bottom of the goddamn list because of that. Close second for the bottom of the list. Holy crap, did I hate this book. We have Damage Control #1, written by the creator of the Goldbergs, and it wants to be funny. Humor is very hard to pull off in a comic, and it's very hard for me to like give a shit about humor in the comic. I think when it's well done, it can be great and funny. Or when it's not well done, it seems like a money grab that just came out because the title's connected to Ms. Marvel and other MCU properties, and they're trying to like get people to spend their money on crap. And this was not good. It was not funny. It's not well drawn. I do not give a shit. The main character was not a likable character. Not even much of a character. Just sort of a placeholder for events. Even when it's a situational comedy, you have to have a funny situation to set up the comedy. And the situation that was set up in here is not funny. It's not a good story. It is just god-fucking awful. Like, I really, really hated this. The art was cartoony, and it was fine, but it's just the story that drove me goddamn nuts. Like, it almost made the incomplete pile as well, but I happened to read this one first for the day, and that's the only reason I trudged through it. Yeah, no thanks. It just seems like another shameless money grab by Marvel, and I just do not care. Holy crap, was this bad. God damn it. Wow. All right. Also bad. Also a money grab. Also things are just going to go on the spec pile and probably not get read from here on out. And don't get me wrong, I will buy this next title because I'm not a goddamn idiot. The last one issue of the last run of these is like a multi-$1,000 book if it's in 9.8. So we have Edge of Spider-Verse #2. You're probably not going to hear me review any of these anymore. I'm probably not going to open them. I'm not going to get my grubby little hands on them. But I will spend $4 on what's essentially a lottery ticket and see if it becomes worth something in a year or two. It had a bad Spider-Gwen story. It had a mini spider, I guess. I don't even remember that one. And Shathra, that was The Spider UK, mildly entertaining. First appearance of a new Spider UK. But another book. Like, it's just the creators are making up characters, and I think they're probably trying to have fun with them. It's just such a clunky way to do it, and like they have to be spider related, they have to tie in, they have to all lead up to some shit. I don't care. I just don't give a shit. It's not the kind of storytelling I like. It's not a quality book. It is another money grab, and I am grabbing people. Like I said, I'm throwing this one on my pile, and hopefully it's worth something. But I'm not gonna bother opening the rest of them anymore, other than to make sure they're in good condition. So if I send them out to CGC that tends to lose 367 comics for somebody today, and whatever, or CBCS that's just a hot goddamn mess, maybe I'll get a 9.8 in 47 years when they're all done with it, or if they lose the book. All right. Speaking of stupid shit that I'm just glad, I'm glad this is over. And this is a stupid goddamn crossover. I think it came out last week, but I had issues with Marvel books last week, so you're going to get some Marvel tied in for this that came out last week. And this is one of them. Hulk number 8. This is the end of the Banner of War, which is Hulk versus Thor. And my nephew Cole is 5 years old. This is the book that he would write, except for him having more fun and more smash him up and less stupid than this. It's just who would win in a fight, Thor versus Hulk. Or you twist it up and you give Thor Hulk's power, Hulk Thor's power, and then you sort of not really fizzle into goddamn nothingness. Even Daniel Warren Johnson on the scripting assist here couldn't save this mess. The art was not good. The story, there's muddled fight scenes when there were fight scenes. It had such a limp, weak ending to this that I was like, no, that figures. It's Donny Cates. He has limp, weak endings to this shit. It's all set up with him and very little payoff. And this was not a good payoff. This is stupid. And I only read it because I'm a Thor fan and I'm going to keep up with Thor. But this did not help the matter. Honestly, any one of these books could probably be the bottom of the I didn't bother to read pile. And this one I just really wanted to see if it was going to be as bad as I thought at the end. And it kind of was. It just, another stupid ass trolling mess. All right. This is an indie book, this next one. It's maybe not awful. It's just another one that's not holding my interest. The art is fine. The story is just such a weird, slow burn for what I think it's supposed to be that I'm having issues with it. Get it? Issues. I have issues. Comic book issues. That's already taken, or whatever made that my channel name, probably. Code 45, number 2, Scout Comics. Apparently, this book is supposed to be about dragons and a subway system and big dark secrets, except for there's no real dragons. Not a lot of secrets, and it's just a very, very slow character study that could end up being kind of interesting. It could be okay, but it's just in a land where there's so much, you only have so much time and so much energy to expand into comics and so much money. This is a $5 book, right? And it's had 2 issues. I gave it an extra issue just cause. I didn't love the first issue, but I was like, well, it's an interesting enough premise. And that's how I feel about this one. Well, I don't love the book, but it's an interesting enough premise. It's still an interesting premise. It's just there's not anything here. And maybe it'll be better read as a trade or collected, but like it's getting lost in a sea of books. And I don't have the wherewithal or the energy to expand on or to waste on this anymore, and it just feels like a waste. And I want to support creator-owned titles. I want to love them. It's just when I don't, I also feel bad if I rip on them because I know like creators pay for these books, and they have to put their own money into this shit to get it printed and published, and I feel bad if I trash it. And I don't know, but it's not awful. It's just not good enough, and it's not a good enough hook in these first 2 issues, and there's not enough happens in here for me to keep reading it. And that's a legit criticism, I think. It has to have enough to it for me to be like, oh, okay, I'm in. And other than dragon scales in the background of an opening of a cover scene, there's nothing here to hook me at all. And so no, I'm done. All right, speaking of done. This is my last issue of this hot mess, too. And this is the best issue of this book thus far. And I think it probably came out last week. I don't remember. I don't know. See, paying attention's hard. Strange number 5. Jed MacKay, other people, Marvel book. Waste of money. Clea continues to be an unlikable character. And she's unlikable in this issue. 5 issues in, I'm not surprised. I thought this was a limited series, and I thought it'd be done by now. It might be. It might be wrapping up somewhat soon. There was a cliffhanger ending here where you're like, oh, okay, that's actually finally going somewhere. Sort of. But it's just, No. When your main character is unlikable, you have to have either supporting characters that are likable or tell a really goddamn interesting story that either has some redemptive arc for the character or something else going around it that's so compelling that the unlikable nature of the main character can be overcome, and that is not here. There's it ties into one of Jed McKay's other books, and that's mildly interesting, but it's just such a fingernails on a chalkboard trying to read this character. Um, the art also, it's better than it has been by Ferreira. Like his art's been their art. I'm not sure the pronouns. I'm not opening this to find out the first name because I don't give that much of a crap. It's been so up and down for me, and it's so uneven. It's sort of evening out here, but it's also still just kind of it's serviceable. It's middle of the road Marvel. It's not going to change the world with the art. And it's just fuck. I hate Clea as a character. I really, really do. And so, issue 5, I am done. If you see me reviewing issue 6, yell at me in the comments down below and say, "You stupid bastard, you knew better," because I did know better. And I'm putting it on film now, saying, well, digital film, whatever. I know better. I'm done. All right. Speaking of Jed McKay, and I'm done. This is better than Strange. It actually has a likable protagonist, anti-hero. Iron Cat number 3, Jed McKay, again. I like Jed McKay's Moon Knight. I think he actually writes a fairly interesting Felicia Hardy in here. It's just it's the same issue I'm having with a lot of this stack. There's just so many comics coming out now that you have to really be good in order to stand out and catch my attention and keep me reading. And this is a fine Felicia Hardy story. Harding, whatever the hell. Black Cat. Iron Cat, whatever the hell. You know the character. That person, name. And it's a fine Tony Stark story, which actually a fairly interesting antagonist. But it's just not enough there to hook me. Like, it's middle of the road Marvel, which I understand by definition, most things are middle of the road. Most comics are average, most are not great. And that is what this is. It is average. It's fine, but if it was a character I loved, I'd keep reading it. But since I don't care, I don't have a lot invested in these characters previous to this. It's all right. Yeah, that's it for now. All right, next. Okay. I'm trying not to be cranky, people. I really am. Grimm number 4. Everyone else seems to have a raging hard-on for this book. I think it's okay. Stephanie Phillips has written better. I liked her Nuclear Family much better. I've liked other stuff she's done much better. Flaviano in the artwork, it's all right. This is an undead or Grim Reaper character, one of the Reapers, trying to figure out why she's special. And so that's the setup. And then from there on out, it has been pretty predictably predictable. Is that how it works? That's not how English works. It's a predictable story. Like this, it telegraphs its punches. I pretty much could have written everything that happened in this issue, and other than like the details of how it happened, nothing in here is surprising. Nothing. And it's okay. It's middle of the road. Again, it's a middle of the road indie book, so I feel a little bit worse trashing it than I do the Marvel shit. But it's still just a middle of the road book. I like the cover. It's got some variant covers. I think it's option. I think it's a spec book. I think everyone else is, not everyone else. I think a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, it's fantastic. It's all right. I've read stories like this before. Like I even think Piers Anthony did one called On a Pale Horse. That's about some dude that had to become death. Oh, sorry, spoilers. He might not become death, but whatever. It looks like it's really heading in that direction. It may get surprising at the end of it all. I probably won't know because I'm done. It lost me after this one. There's not enough here, and there's too much other shit out that nah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I should talk more about some of these. I'm not going to. If you're not holding my interest, I don't know how much more criticism I can get of a book. All right, and then, all right, how are we getting here? We're actually getting some good stuff. Don't worry, people. Stick with me. All right, we have Avengers Forever number 8. This book needs to start getting somewhere. I'm enjoying each issue of this well enough. It is Jason Aaron and Aaron Cooter, I think. Nate Cooter, whatever, it doesn't matter. Sorry to the artist whose name I'm forgetting and I'm not opening this up. I dig the cover. It says Unworthy Thor. And Jason Aaron writes a good Thor, and he actually can tell a solid story when he wants to. Every issue of this has just been like a different multiversal Avenger. That's not a lot of spoilers. If you don't know that by now, sorry. This is the Thor issue, right? And it's fun. It should be called What If, because all of these are just kind of what if this happened to this character and that turned into this. There has not been any plot advancement to this at all, other than they're all getting in a car. But yeah, this book just needs to start getting somewhere, and it needs to start advancing that B plot and turning that B plot into the A plot. There's only so many different. Oh, apparently there's 8 so far issues where I could give a shit about like a different kind of Avenger from a different multiverse getting introduced and their story getting told in one issue. Rinse, repeat times 8. Like, it has to start going somewhere. Like, it's a spec book, sure, whatever, but it's not going to turn into shit. I mean, it's not a good spec book even for that. But, like, it's a fun romp. But it's expensive, and these books have to, like, start telling a story. Otherwise, just call it What If. If you call it What If, I'm not going to get mad at you. Because that's, then it's like, oh, I know what I'm in for. But when you're calling it Avengers Forever, and you had to sort of set up in the first issue, and you're like, it's supposed to go somewhere, then goddamn, start going somewhere at some point. All right. Next, we have another frustrating book that this one I actually like. And I like this book. It's a frustrating, man, is it frustrating. Bunny Masks, The Hollow Inside #4. This is the last book of this miniseries. Paul Tobin and Andre Moody. Andre Moody's art is fantastic. I was talking on my show on Unboxing Match, which is you can watch. I'm not going to leave a link to it, but go watch the last one with Scott from Porter's Hide. He loves Andre Moody, and I'm a fan. Their art's amazing. It's a watercolor. It's very well done. The story, great storyteller, great visuals, creepy, horrific, this is just me opening to a random page. Gorgeous stuff. Like, I dig the art, and Andre Moody's just fast as all hell because he's working on at least 2 different titles now, and either these have all been pushed back and he's had the time to catch his breath, or he's just a workhorse and a fiend and paints faster than I can imagine, because fairly detailed, full painted pages, all of them. The story, horror, creepy, doesn't make a ton of sense. I've been saying that. Honestly, watch every Bunny Mask review I've ever done, and Tobin gives just enough to keep you hooked. Look, I think there's a hook on the cover. There's a hook, right? You learn a little bit more every issue, and you just keep going and going and going and thinking, oh, it'll all start making sense. And as soon as one part of it starts to make sense, other bits of it slip away. So it's just that's what I mean by it's a frustrating read. I don't need everything handed to me on a silver platter, and I don't like it when that happens. I don't love exposition dumps where it's like, oh, this is what it all means. But it's a frustrating read that happens to be interesting enough that I'm down for it. And so I will probably pick up the next run of this again because it's a fucking interesting book. It really is. But you're not gonna. It's not the kind of book you want to read if you want everything wrapped up into a neat package and a lot of easy answers, or a tightly told story that wraps up. I think it's tightly constructed. I think Paul Tobin does have a plan for this, but no one's in on this plan yet. You're just still kind of left in the dark, even though this is the end of an arc. It's an end of an arc. It's the end of this mini, and it'll, assuming it has enough people reading it, it'll get picked up for the next one, and the next one will probably start and be also frustrating. But there you have it. I like it, but it's a frustrating one. All right, next. And this one probably could have gone underneath this first one. It's just, we're getting close territory. And in these closeness, the rankings get kind of fuzzy, right? So just bear with me on it. When I do worst to best, it's subjective. It's my thoughts at the time, and they're all kind of get muddled in the middle. And this one's kind of muddled in the middle. This is Minor Threats #1, written by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom. Jordan Bloom's a comic writer. Patton Oswalt's Patton Oswalt. You know him. A comedian. And this is about D-list superheroes and what happens when the big superheroes start paying attention. Kind of. I don't want to spoil what's going on in this. It's an okay read. It's just very, very verbose. And it kind of screams like being written by somebody that doesn't write a lot of comics, because it's a lot of inner monologue-y exposition dump stuff, which I said I didn't like in Bunny Mask, and I don't particularly love it here. I think there's probably a more effective way they could have told this story, but it's not bad. It's an interesting premise. I don't want to give away the premise, because that's giving away that's spoilers. I don't like doing that in reviews. But if you're looking for an interesting enough book about supervillains, you could do worse than this. It's not going to change your life. It's probably not going to change anything. But it's also $5. I might give this one more issue, maybe. It's at that weird borderline where it's like, okay, do I want to keep spending money on it? I do think Patton Oswalt is funny. I'd like to see what happens when he can tell a story. Also, Jordan Bloom worked with him on the MODOK TV series, I believe, and so I dug that show. No one else seemed to, but that's fine. I thought it was funny. And I think humor is hard to pull off. This is not a slapsticky book. There are some funny moments in here, but it is told fairly straight. So it's not a pure comedy like you might expect from Patton Oswalt. I think he's writing it as a fan of comics and wants to tell like this comic story he's had churning around for a while. That's the impression I'm getting of this. And I think it's decent. I think it could be set in a universe given what's happening. And it has the potential to turn into something, well, good. This first issue is pretty much all set up. And the way the setup happens frustrated me a bit. Just because it's such an info dump, inner monologue-y stuff. All right. Yeah, we're doing this one next. Daredevil 650 or number 2 or whatever the hell. Marvel wants more money from you. This should not be whatever the hell. This one came out last week, right? And it's a $6 book. It should not be. This is just another Marvel money grab bullshit thing for that. They threw in some backup stories that are like, shrug, who cares? It just should be a regular issue. And they also started Daredevil over for no goddamn reason. Because it's fucking Marvel. It's what they goddamn do. They just want to get their orders up. So they're like, oh, we got to start this over. Nothing else has changed on the book. We have the same creative team. But we're kind of losing sales numbers. So we'll have a weird little mini event that doesn't go anywhere called Civil War Part 12 or whatever the hell they called it. And then we're going to start the book over. Same creative team. Nothing else changes. That's this. They started the book over. They used it as a reset of the status quo. Whatever, with a minor little wrinkle that's changed. Because that's how they're getting away with it. But it's Chip Zdarsky. It's Marco Cicchetto. I like them both. I think Daredevil is in good hands with Zdarsky. I think the villain introduced in here, possible villain that thinks he's a hero, and you learn the motives and the weirdness behind it. It's an interesting enough idea, and like any good villain, they don't see themselves as the villain. They just think, oh, I'm doing what's right, and consequences be damned. And that's what makes for a good villain. And so the villain in here, without spoiling a lot, I like. And I like Cicchetto's art. I like Daredevil. I like Zdarsky on Daredevil. I don't like paying $6 just for some backup filler fluff. That's what bugs me on this one. But otherwise, it's a decent book. This cover has very little to do with what's going on in here, but that's also comics for you. From the dawn of time, the covers and the interiors have not really had much to do with each other. So, it's a fun one. I'll keep reading Daredevil. I'll keep trying to review it. Some of these, when you're reading monthly Marvel stuff, it's hard to really have any grand insights from month to month. So my grand insight is fuck you for making me spend $6. All right, next we have the last book in this series, and there's a couple books that ended this month, and I'm gonna be sad to see this one go. Honestly, this is Robin number 17, written by Josh Williamson, art by Cruz, who I actually will pull out and remember the first name of. I think if it's in the front page. No, of course not. All right, Roger Cruz. This has been a fun book. I did not care about Damian Wayans at all. Damian Wayne at all until this book. And I picked it up on a lark first issue 17 ago, and I've been stuck with it ever since. It got bogged down when it got tied into events, but Robin has been a solidly fun thing that made me kind of give a shit about the Damian Wayne character. Introduced a fun bit of side characters, like Flatline and a couple others in here that names I can't remember, but he's got a supporting cast of characters, expanded out his history, made him into something that's other just a whiny little brat that hates everybody. Delved into his family a bit. Told a fun story on Lazarus Island a while back. Wraps up some of that stuff. Sets up some stuff in here. This is the end of the Robin title. I don't know if the sales were dropping or this was planned. It's going to lead into Batman versus Robin or Robin versus Batman. And if it continues by this team and has this focus, I'm looking forward to that. If it shifted all up and just try and make it into something it's not, it could be irritating. But this is a fun way to end this book. It kind of gives a bit of closure to this title. It wraps up some of the stuff we've been talking about. It sets up some stuff for the future. And it's just been a solidly fun read from DC, which is... DC has been putting out better books than Marvel. And I like both companies. I hate both companies. They're both annoying. But Robin's been good. And it's a good way to end that one. All right, speaking of DC as being good and, whatever. Everything I just said. Nightwing number, what is this? 95. Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo. I love Bruno Redondo's art. I think he uses these digital halftones that are great. do it zip tones, whatever you want to call them. Great visual storyteller. You're never confused as far as what the action is. Clean line. Effective coloring by Lucas. Well, we're gonna find out. Effective coloring by Adriano Lucas, and different inkers on a couple pages. We can sort of tell, but yeah, Bruno Redondo, great art. Tom Taylor's having fun with this book, and this is a fun story with Nightwing off on his own, and like another set of supporting characters. You can say a lot of what I said in the Robin thing and tied into this, but this one's not over yet, so it's better because it's not done, right? Anyways, there are some social commentary issues that get thrown about in here, and it's well handled. It's not overly preachy or exposition-y, or shouldn't probably piss everybody off, but it probably will because everyone gets mad at everything. I like the blockbuster villain in here, who was another character I just didn't care about, and also I never really gave a shit about Nightwing until Tom Taylor took him over. But he's having fun writing this, you can tell, and it's a fun story. So if you're looking for fun, ongoing stuff, Nightwing is probably up your alley, unless you really just hate anything DC or hate anything Bat related, which I can get. There's 4 billion Bat titles out, but I've been liking Nightwing. It got bogged down for a bit when it was tied into some of the other crap, much like Robin. When they start taking these books and like you force them into these crossover events that they want nothing to do with, like Fear State, it lost me a bit on there. But it's back on its own now. It's back on its strong footing, and I'm digging Nightwing. Another one of DC's better titles. Not the best. We're going to get to that. That's later in the stack, and I'm a little sad, but whatever. All right. Public Enemy? No. Public Domain number 3, Chip Zdarsky. This is Zdarsky's criticism of Marvel and DC and their handling of creator-owned properties, or their own creators back in the past, probably in the present as well. But he also manages to tell a pretty effective family story in here, and has some fun humor. It's a delicate balancing act he's pulling off in this book. He's doing all of the lifting. He's doing the writing and the illustration. I think the lettering too, but I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe there might be another lettering on here. And the art is not going to change the world. It's not awful, but yeah. Chip Zdarsky, they're not naming another letterer, so I think he's using a computer font and lettering it, but that's fine. And the art is serviceable. It's Zdarsky's art, which I thought was his strength when he first came into the business, is not. He's a much stronger writer than artist, but the art's not going to piss you off. It's not an action-heavy, like, romp of a superhero story, even though it does involve sort of the behind-the-scenes of a superhero thing. He's telling a business drama wrapped with, a family drama wrapped inside of a business thing. This actually probably would make a decent TV series on like Showtime if it was done right. And it's an interesting book. Also, it manages to have a cliffhanger ending, which in a dramatic, whatever the hell this book is, it's mostly a drama. It managed to have a cliffhanger that I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And it kind of like a wah, wah, all at the same time without spoiling this. I am liking this a lot. I think it's been solid from issue number 1. I thought issue number 1 was fantastic. Issue 2 dipped a bit, and issue 3 is kind of back up there for me. So I like this book, and I hope other people are reading it, and I hope it's getting some love, because I want to see where this one ends or goes, and I hope it has. Knowing Chip, it probably does have a finite ending, and I hope it does. And I want to read all the way to it. You might want to consider digitally. You might want to consider it as a trade paperback just to save some money, because it's probably not going to change the world, and it's not a great spec book. And if you're buying for that, you're probably not watching my shit anyways, but whatever. So, all right, next. This book also surprised me. I liked issue number 1 okay. I didn't think it was fantastic. I thought it was kind of an annoying-ish start. But this book got much better with issue number 2, and I'm talking about Rogues Gallery. Image Comics, Hannah Rose May on the art and writing, and Justin Mason on the art. Issue number 1 basically was like, what if all these stupid little fanboys felt, these people that feel they own the characters, much like weird YouTube creators that give reviews every week, kind of cranky and feel like the characters belong to them. I don't know who I'm talking about. But yeah, it dealt with like toxic fandom, and the issues behind that, and what happens when toxic fandom goes way overboard. This flipped the script a little bit, and this issue deals with the object of that, but it doesn't really progress that plot, not to spoil anything, but this is the star of a TV show, and her dealing with the fandom, And so that's issue number 2 of this. And it's really well done. I found myself really rooting for the main character in here. My interest was piqued from the get-go, and because I was expecting it to just carry over right over from issue number 1, and it didn't as far as that goes. And the art's okay. Art by Justin Mason is cartoony. It's not the greatest. His faces all kind of tend to look alike, so you're gonna have a bit of issue separating them. But I mean, he does an okay job at the storytelling. You're not gonna be confused by it. It's just not gonna wow you on that front. But yeah, the story itself, like, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed this issue. I wasn't gonna pick it up. It was just kind of a stack of books with my LCS. And you're like, you want Rogues number 2? I'm like, Rogues? That came out. I thought he was talking about a different book. And he's like, oh, Rogues Gallery. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. And so I'm glad I did, because this was the surprise book of the week for me. If you're not picking this one up, or if you picked it up and issue number 1 bugged you, give issue number 2 a chance. And if you can probably find 1 or 2, for, like 2 you can definitely find at cover price because it just dropped this week. But number 1 you can probably find fairly cheaply. So I recommend it. Just get past issue number 1 to get here. All right, next we have a book that I also didn't expect to. Well, no, that's a lie because I like the first one of this. Wynd from James Tynion IV and Michael Dialynice. Michael, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get your last name right. The Throne in the Sky. Anyways, this 3rd arc, technically the 2nd series, I believe, of Wynd. Yeah, the first one with 10 issues. I think maybe 12. Remembering things is hard. Young adult fantasy. Fairly complex and starting to get fairly grown up in the subject matter it tackles. I like this issue a lot. If you've not read the first 2 volumes or the first 2 arcs, you probably should. Although there is enough in the very beginning that sort of catches you up as far as what actually happens. Like, hang on, I'll find that page for y'all while you just watch me flip through a book. Oh, here we go. So there is a recap page, but that doesn't really do the story justice, and you're better off just reading the first arcs of it, either digitally or you can find it collected. This is great. It's a better first issue than the first issue, and you get a little more backstory into the main character, Wynd. You find out what's going on. The story-wise, it's effectively everybody but wants Wynd for their own purposes. And, like, the fate of humanity or fairydom or vampires, they're all in crux. And they're all in crisis, and it all falls on the back of an unwilling protagonist. So that part's not necessarily unique. It's the unwilling, unwitting protagonist at the center of things. It's a time-honored fantasy trope, and this plays into that. But it's well done. It does remind me of some of the later Harry Potter books. Maybe not to that level of obsessive fandom and or possibly quality, but it is decent. If you're looking for something fantasy-oriented, give this a try. It's not going to be for everybody. The art is a little cartoony, although that has also grown up. Like Michael Dialynice, their art has also, I think, gotten better as the series has gone along and grown up along with the characters and the story and the plot. So it's an interesting enough book. I'm really digging this. Tynion sometimes bugs me, but when he's on his game, he's on his game. And he's on his game here, and this is great. So I really dig Wynd, and I really dug this issue of Wynd, The Throne in the Sky. I'm not going to remember that title. I'm just going to call it Wynd Volume 2. All right, next. James Tynion. When he's on his game, he's on his game. We got 2 books left, people. Department of Truth number 20. This is the book that reveals it all. Or is it? Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, this is one of the best issues of this book yet. And it is doing what Department of Truth has sort of done all along, and playing with what is real and what is fantasy, and what the characters know as real and versus what the characters know as fantasy. And you're never sure what's true in here, and you're never sure what's a lie, and you're never sure who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side. And that's continuing here. There's an ancillary character that's used as a storytelling device in here, and it does turn into kind of an info dumpy thing. But I'm intrigued enough by it because you don't know if the information you're getting or is being told to this character is actually real. Art, stupidly good. It's not going to be for everybody because it is kind of gritty. Like Martin Simmons' art is just gritty and grimy. Almost 90s grungy, reminds me of some of the old Vertigo stuff, some of like Bill Sienkiewicz art, and just kind of not necessarily the best from a storytelling department, but as far as like gorgeous and kind of gross all at the same time, it's awesome. And I'm still digging this book. It's one of those I was kind of going to give up on, but this issue hooked me and drew me back in, and I'm in because I'm like, well, okay. If what we learned in here is true, that's interesting enough. But if it's a lie, that might be more interesting. And it's just so well drawn, even though it's not necessarily the best as far as like, you're never really clear as to what the story is, but that fits here. And I like this title. I know it's not for everybody, but Department of Truth, number 20, one of the strongest issues of the book yet. And I dug it. I don't love the cover, but I love the interior stuff. All right, last. And the last book issue of this title, and my favorite book this week, was Swamp Thing number 16. This ends Ron V and Sean Perkins' run on this. And it's an effective ending. It's not the most action bang 'em up climactic ending, but it fits the story. And it wraps things up, sets up the possibility of a continuing forward. But Levi, who's I can't remember the last name, but the new Swamp Thing, who was introduced in issue number 1 of this arc, is the new Avatar of the Green. There's the new Parliament of Gears introduced. There's other characters. Everything that's been introduced in these past 16 issues gets wrapped up, not necessarily cleanly and nicely, but wrapped up in a fitting way in this book. It's been one of DC's very strongest titles from the get-go, even when it was bogged down by having to tie into other shit, which DC loves to do, and so does Marvel. Like when it was forced to tie into Suicide Squad and stuff, it still was good. Not as good as when it was on its own, but decent. And this issue kind of just, it brings it all to a very fitting closing. And Perkins' art is always grand. And really, I think he took his time on this and really wanted to wrap the story up in a beautiful way. I don't love Spicer's coloring on this. And I said that last issue. It just feels a little too bright for me, given the nature of the story. And that's a personal thing. But Mike Spicer, I normally like his coloring, and I don't think it's awful on this, but it just is seems a little oversaturated and a little too bright for what you're getting, for the kind of thing. And that could just be me being a curmudgeon and wanting some of the news paper pulpiness that goes along with in my head with some of these gothic-ish, horror-ish stories. But it just doesn't feel quite right in that department. It's a minor nitpick, but on the whole, this is a great ending to this series. I kind of wish it continued, but I understand stories need endings, and this is an effective ending. It'd be interesting to see if this character gets picked up again and if they do more with it. I hope so, but I hope it's under the right hands, and if it is Ram V, I'm there for it. If it's somebody else, it'll depend upon the creator. But yeah, Swamp Thing, this has been a special run of this, and I really loved it, and I'm glad it ended. I'm bittersweet and sort of sad that it ended, but I'm glad it ended well. And so that's it. That's what I read. That's everything. Well, everything I read and half a book I didn't. So let me know if you read all these, if I missed anything. Let me know down below. And again, if you get a chance, go to cbcawards.org. Cast your vote for your favorite creators. It means a lot to the community. And thank you so much for watching. It always means a lot to me that anybody tunes into this nonsense. And have a good day. And don't be a dick, even if everything's ending and the world's falling apart. See ya.